Hey guys, it's Mr. Overgriff here, and I'm back with another video for you guys. This video I'm going to be demonstrating how to use OBS to actually record to websites such as Twitch and YouTube. So what I have here is actual picture of the OBS interface, and in the bottom left corner you have source scenes, and next to that you have sources. So the way that this works is a scene is a particular video game or video that you would like to record, and inside of that there are sources, which are the individual components of that video. Okay, so for example, in this picture you have scene 2 is selected, so the third scene under the scenes list is selected, and then to the right of that there are 5 objects called sources. There's images, there's window captures in this one, and if I select one of these, it will actually show in the window up in the middle. It'll actually update that to whatever the image might be, whatever the window capture might be, whatever you have selected is gonna, and you can organize those to where one might be on top of the other. So for instance, image 4 in this sources is going to be higher on the page, on the output, than image 3. So image 3 would be hidden behind image 4 if they were overlapping. So that's just how that works. So basically, once you have all this set up, and again, if you don't have OBS, you can download it with this website. This is obsproject.com/download, and this will actually get you your OBS installer and allow you to actually use OBS to record videos. Okay, so but once you're actually at this part where you actually have OBS set up, you actually need to do some settings adjustments. So you can see in the bottom right corner it says next to exit there is a button called settings. It's also under the file menu, but you click settings and you come up with a couple of different options. Now when you navigate through the settings menu, on the left pane there's actually different options like output, audio, video, etc. When you're under video, I find that for what I'm doing, which is actually streaming Final Fantasy XI online and streaming League of Legends and streaming a couple of other things, Octagon. I put a lot of Octagon videos on my channel. When I'm doing this sort of thing, I find that these are the best video settings in general to actually set up my OBS where I can actually make videos with no lag. And so these are the settings that I use. And I would recommend these settings actually. So your resolution is actually not 1080p because you're playing a game that's 15 years old. If you're playing Final Fantasy XI, so you're using your video. Your actual graphics resolution, let's say you have a 2018 laptop, it's brand new, it probably has all these bells and whistles on it, but when you actually played this game, you probably discovered right away that you needed to change your resolution a lot to actually play Final Fantasy XI. Otherwise, it looked really bad. So given that, these are the settings I think for video that you actually need to use. Bicubic is your middle option, and you could bump that up to Lanxo or whatever it's called, and that goes from 16 samples to 32 samples. That would be okay, but the FPS definitely can't go above 30. Like, you have to not do 60 FPS or you're gonna lag really hard. You might not even be able to record at all if you do 60 FPS on Final Fantasy XI when you're actually trying to stream that game. It's gonna cause you a lot of problems. All right, now let's actually look at some more settings. These are the settings under the output. This is where things get really tricky. I've messed with this for a long time, and I feel most comfortable with these settings. So this is the output settings screen, and I've tabbed over to the recording page. So there's a streaming, a recording, and an audio. Now you might notice that the top mode, it says output mode is actually selected to advanced. That gives you all of these options below. Otherwise it shows you some generic stuff, which will work and actually works fairly well, I might add. But if you want to actually mess with the advanced settings to try to tweak things to actually make better videos, then this is kind of what I've come up with, which I feel like works pretty well for Final Fantasy XI. Okay, so under the recording menu is what I'm going to make videos to post to YouTube, for instance. This is not streaming to Twitch, it's just making videos that I will later edit and then put on YouTube. So those video files that I need to have, those recordings that I need to have, they actually need to be recorded in a certain way. So this video tab shows that information a little bit, and then of course this output tab that we're on, this actually is going to show all of the information. So under recording, you'll have a path set, preferably on another drive. That way, if you film a lot of videos, if you record a lot of videos, you don't run out of space on the active drive that you use, or maybe your C drive. So that's how I like to do it. So I put everything on another hard drive. The format really doesn't matter, FLV, MP4, whatever. MP4 was what was recommended by a lot of other streamers, so that's what I went with. The audio tracks, of course, you could add extra audio tracks that you could use, but you could actually mute one and not the other. There's a bunch of settings that you can do, and what this will allow you to do is actually, like, let's say you're listening to music on your stream, you don't want your actual recording to have that music, then you can actually mute that on the recording, but you could still hear it in your earballs. So that will actually make so you don't actually have your computer affected. You can actually play whatever audio tracks that you want, but they're not going to be recorded. So, but because I'm typically recording everything I see in here, I only have the one audio track selected, and I feel like that's good enough for me, and that's what I'm going to leave it at. Now, the encoder, there are a few that you can use. They're all quite good, but this one is one of the options I have for my particular machine, and I like this option. It works quite nicely. Okay. Now for the rate control, CBR definitely has to be selected. Now the bit rate can be any number. It can be literally anything. I've not noticed many changes, like many differences in quality when I've changed this number from 2500 to 25,000. I've seen so many videos with people saying it needs to be a certain number, blah, 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 blah. Dude, I've tested like all of these numbers and they don't seem to affect anything. So just put a bitrate on there or leave it default. I mean, it doesn't seem to matter. Okay, so the key interval, I was recommended to use 2, but these people might not know what they're talking about because they said 25,000 bitrate was good, and I feel like that's too high and unnecessarily high, but whatever. Okay, so the keyframe interval being at 2, you could leave that at 0 for automatic. The automatic features, if anything says automatic or default on this, it's probably really well thought out by the engineers that designed OBS, so it's fine. Don't think that, oh, you should change it yourself. No, if you don't know what it needs to be and there's an automatic option, just fucking leave it as automatic. It's fine. Come to think of it, after having tweaked some of these other values below this keyframe interval, I actually ran into a lot of problems recording, so I actually came up with these settings. This is a preset high performance. I believe that means that it focuses on the application that I'm recording off of and not actually OBS or the output video file, but the actual application that I'm running. The game in this case is actually performing very high. So that is what I think needs to be set. So high performance, this definitely seems to actually make Final Fantasy XI gameplay really smooth while you're recording the game. So that's just something I'd like to mention. Now, profile, main or high seems to be okay. Now, the next option being level. A lot of people are saying use 1, but I, again, trust OBS to make the right decision when I select auto. So I just have auto here, and I think that that's fine. Now, we don't have this checkbox checked. It was recommended to leave it unchecked on some, but some people said it doesn't matter if it's checked or unchecked, so you might as well leave it unchecked. So that's what we've got going on here. And of course, these other default values of 0 and 2 on these bottom options, that is what I have, and that seems to work just fine. I have not actually ever touched those. Okay, so now if you would like to stream to a software like to a streaming software website like Twitch, then you would need a streaming page. So under this streaming page, let me actually pull this up. I thought I had it selected, but I guess I did not. Okay, so streaming. Okay, so yeah, so here we go. So if you would like to stream to Twitch, then you would need to use the streaming option, which is under output, but on the left instead of the right. This is actually the default page. When you select output, you get to the streaming, but most people that are watching this on YouTube probably don't use Twitch. They probably only make YouTube videos, in which case, when they get to this option, output streaming, they do need to tab over to recording in order to make changes, because this is very easy to make changes to the streaming tab because that's the default one that you get to, but you actually wanted to just record a video for YouTube, so you definitely have to make sure you tab over to recording. So that just needs to be noted. Okay, so but the streaming settings are as such. Again, if you want to play music and not have your stream listen to it, then you could select different audio tracks and mute them in the output. Definitely play around with that if that's something you'd like to do. But if you're just basically streaming what you hear and see to the internet, then this is what I think is fine. Again, the encoder, there's a lot that you could use. They all work quite well. This is the one that was recommended, so I'm going to be using it. This checkbox, enforce streaming service encoder settings, I do have that ticked, but I don't have the rescale output ticked because, again, this number that's generated here, if you did tick this, it's going to actually show you a list of different numbers that you could rescale to. Well, this is the one that showed up because this is the setting that I have on my machine, which means OBS by default knows that this is the actual correct value, so I'm trusting it because it's actually right. This is the correct value that I have for my machine. So if I leave this unticked, it's just going to leave the number the same that it is. Okay, so you can tick this or not. It doesn't seem to matter. I think that if you would like to rescale the output to something other than what you're using, then you would tick this and make those changes, and then the video might be rescaled afterward, but I don't think that it seems to matter, so I just leave it unticked. Okay, now the CBR rate control seems to be exactly the same as the other page, with the CBR being the same. For rate control, CBR is selected. So we have CBR selected for streaming. The bitrate doesn't seem to matter what the number is, so I just put a number in, 2,500, 3,500, 10,000, whatever. Keyframe interval, again, was recommended to use 2, but 0 being auto, that would be something that I trust because OBS knows what it's doing. So if you did put a 0 there, it would be fine with that. Now, presets, again, high performance is what I assume is actually going to be my application lag, latency in my application while I'm recording will not be affected if this is set, so I actually have this set. And I did test this and noticed some results, so I'm pretty sure that's what it does, and I think that that is the most important flag that you'll have set, and this is the one that I use for streaming and recording. As you can see, high performance is the preset. Now, the profile main, you could go high, but I noticed some problems going high, so I left it on main. Okay, and then the streaming, the level is also auto. You could select 1. A lot of people are recommending 1, but again, it's auto, which means OBS gets to decide, and it knows what it's doing, so you could leave it as auto. And then the line under that is use 2-pass encoding. I don't think that that's necessary. Similar to this other page, where I have it not ticked, I actually noticed no difference between those two, so I just leave it not ticked. It seems to be working just fine while it's not ticked, and so that is what I have for those settings for streaming. So I hope this video actually helped you guys learn a little bit about OBS, the inner workings of OBS. I hope you guys can actually learn all of the different settings that you have in OBS and how to tweak them, and you can use these settings that I've come up with as a template to actually play the Final Fantasy XI online game and actually stream that to YouTube. I would encourage you to do that because that is a dying game and it needs all the players and all the streamers that it can get. So please guys, play Final Fantasy XI, use these OBS settings, or post me a comment with better OBS settings in the comments below. And I guess until next time guys, I'll be seeing you in my next video. Thanks so much for watching and have a good day.